Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us in our lesson where we are studying the parable that Jesus told. It's popularly known as the parable of the wise and the foolish builders. But today I decided to call it Getting Ready for the Rain. Before we get into the depth of what we're trying to understand today, I want us to first start by defining what a parable is. So what Jesus used to do was he used to use simple illustrations to teach deep moral or spiritual lessons. Or in other ways, I could say a parable is an easy to understand story that helps us to understand the more complex issues of salvific importance. Today we are focusing on the parable of the wise and foolish builder that we find in the book of Luke chapter 6 verse 46 to 49. Reading here. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? As for everyone who comes to me and hears my words and puts them not into practice, I will show you what they are like. They are like a man building a house who dug deep and laid a foundation on a rock. When the flood came, the torrent struck that house, but it could not shake it because it was well built. But the one who hears my word and does not put it into practice is like a man who built on ground without a foundation. The moment the torrent struck, the house collapsed, and its destruction was complete. So what Jesus tells us here is a story of two builders. One who he says is the wise builder, and he likens them to the person who hears his word, hears Jesus' teachings, and then puts them into practice. He says this man is like a man who builds a house on the foundation of a rock, while the foolish builder is the one that builds on sinking sand or builds a house without a strong foundation. So what we know is from civil engineering is that the strength of a house comes from its foundation. So a house without a good foundation is weak and it can easily be destroyed. Actually, the words that the Bible use here, it says its destruction was complete, meaning that there was not even a remnant of that house left. I want us to focus on that, on this, and to meditate and think a little bit deeper about this short parable. First, it is told after the Sermon on the Mount. And what we know about the Sermon on the Mount is that the Sermon on the Mount is not one sermon, but it's a series of lessons or sermons that Jesus taught. And in those sermons, he introduced very revolutionary and heartbreaking messages which had not been taught to the people of Israel before that time. So because of that, he started to gain popularity and the following was becoming huge. But as he looked into the crowds, he realized that many people were following him, but they did not really do or follow his teachings. They listened, but they did not act out what Jesus had taught. Like today, many people are saying, Lord, 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 but they do not care about the teachings of God. Anyway, there are three lessons that I want us to focus on today. Lesson number one is, everyone is a builder. Yes, you heard me right. Everyone is a builder. We are all in the business of building our character. So every decision that we make, every action that we take is an act of building our characters, of building our personalities. And no one can build for another person. So if your father was a preacher or a pastor or a prophet or an apostle, they cannot build your character. It's your own work of building your own personality, your own character. And remember, we are building for the day of the storm. And will our character stand? What we also know is sometimes, actually according to the parable, it doesn't tell us that there was anything different about these houses except that they were built on different foundations. Which therefore means that we can safely conclude that they could have used identical materials, identical building materials, identical construction plans, but the difference was on the foundation. And it might have even seemed that the one building on the solid rock was wasting resources because he had to blast rocks so that he cuts into the rocks and built his house. But anyway, the buildings might have looked the same material, but on the day of the floods, on the day of the rains, the difference came. Second lesson number 2. I said lesson number 1, everyone is a builder. Lesson number 2, the rains will surely come. Whatever we do and whatever we say, what we know is the rains of life will surely come. No one knows when they will come, but each and everyone is subject or is going to face the storms of life. At the time of the buildings, at the time of building our characters, or at the time of the construction of those houses, there was no sign, there was nothing that showed that the rains were coming. And you might even argue and say the skies are clear. But what we know from the parable is that the rains will surely come. It's not about if the rains come, it's about when the rains come, because they will surely come. The storms of life will come. It could be death of a loved one, it could be unemployment, you could be dead broke, it could be sicknesses, it could be heartbreaks, heartaches, you name it, diseases, pestilences. Those are the storms of life. Persecution, those are the storms of life. And will your building stand when the storms of life strike? Number 3, the outcome depends on the foundation. The buildings might have been the same material, same design, same architect, I think. But when the storm came, one building could not stand because it did not have a strong foundation. And Jesus calls this person unwise, while the other one stood because it was on solid foundation, it was on the rock. And we know that Jesus is the rock of ages. We know that this wise builder built on Christ, the solid rock. And this is why his building stood. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesus was not teaching a building lesson. He was teaching a character building lesson. And unless we hear and do the works of his teaching, then when the storm comes, our buildings will collapse.